You're chained in the dark hull of a ship. The smell of rotten fish burns your throat. You can't see anything. Only hear water slamming against wood. And the low, broken sobs of other women around you. 6 days ago, you were praying inside the monastery of Lindisfarne. 6 days ago, you were a consecrated virgin, promised to God, protected by faith. That protection was an illusion. At dawn, the fog rolled in. And with it came the men from the north. They slaughtered the monks on the same altars where prayers had echoed for centuries. They slit throats while men begged for mercy. They looted gold, burned sacred manuscripts, shattered relics. But they didn't kill you. They chained you. Dragged you to the beach. Ripped off your habit in front of everyone to inspect your body like livestock. You are 15 years old. And you've just learned that in the Viking world, there is a special category of slave. Frilla Christiana. A Christian captive. Preferably a nun. Preferably a virgin. Because for the Vikings, there was no greater victory over the Christian god than turning his consecrated virgins into permanent concubines. The ship moves north. Norway is weeks away. And no one is coming to save you. June 8, 793 AD. The island of Lindisfarne, off the coast of Northumbria, England. One of the holiest sites in Christendom. Home to the relics of Saint Cuthbert. A place untouched by war for over 150 years. The monks had heard rumors, raiders, pagans, coastal attacks. But this was sacred ground. Protected by God himself. That morning, the fog was so thick the watchtower saw nothing. Until 30 ships emerged from the mist. Dragon heads carved into their prows like demons rising from the sea. By the time the bells rang, it was already over. The monks who approached thinking they were traitors died with their hands raised in welcome, axes split skulls. Blood soaked the stones. The attack lasted less than 4 hours. By noon, Lindisfarne was silent. 47 monks were dead. Every one of them. But the 23 nuns were still alive. And that's when their real nightmare began. The Vikings didn't take women randomly. They had a system. In Norse society, slavery was structured. Most slaves worked fields or homes. But there was a special class, amateur, female slaves who also served as concubines. And the most valuable among them were Christian women taken from monasteries. Why? Because humiliating a nun wasn't just sexual conquest. It was theological warfare. A nun had sworn eternal chastity to Christ. Claiming her body was proof, at least to the Vikings, that the Christian God had no power here. On the beach, the selection began. The nuns were stripped naked. Teeth checked. Skin examined. Ages guessed. The abbess, too old, was killed on the spot. 8 of the youngest were chosen for something called blood marriage. They didn't know what that meant. They would learn. The voyage north was deliberate psychological destruction. They were kept chained in the cargo holds. Dark, wet, reeking of filth. Fed moldy bread and salt-burned fish. Forced to soil themselves where they sat. Hair cut and thrown into the sea. Forced to curse Christ. Made to drink alcohol until they vomited. Not to violate them. Not yet. To break them. By the time they reached Norway, most had already surrendered inside. That was the point. During a pagan festival, the ritual was completed. At a stone altar in the forest, the captive was bound and stripped. A horse was sacrificed. Blood mixed with mead. Forced down her throat. Palms cut. Blood pressed together. A false marriage sealed in blood. Then, publicly, her old life was destroyed. She was no longer a nun. She was property. Life as a Frilla Christiana followed a pattern. She lived in her master's household. Available at all times. No right to refuse. She cooked. Wove. Worked the fields. Bore children. Pregnancy brought no mercy. Birth brought no rest. Many died. Those who survived often lived with permanent injuries, pain, and shame. But the worst violence wasn't physical. It was spiritual. They were forced to abandon their faith. Mocked for believing Christ would save them. Asked, again and again. Where is your God now? Some resisted in silence. Some broke. Some tried to kill themselves. History barely remembers them. The church recorded the raid. And then went quiet. The Viking sagas mention Christian slave women only in fragments. Names lost. Lives reduced to footnotes. But their impact was real. These women, enslaved, violated, forgotten, became mothers of Scandinavia. They whispered prayers to children who would become kings. They planted beliefs that slowly consumed the old gods from within. By the 12th century, paganism was gone. Not conquered by missionaries, but carried in silence by women who never chose martyrdom. The Vikings thought they were destroying Christianity. Instead, they carried it home. The nuns of Lindisfarne have no monuments. No feast days. No statues. Only bones in foreign soil. And bloodlines that still exist. They were erased because their story was inconvenient. Remembering them honestly is the only justice left. This is Historic Echoes. We don't sanitize the past. We expose what history tried to bury. If you want more voices the world chose to silence, subscribe.